All right. Good afternoon, Masterclass. Welcome to welcome to Masterclass. My name is Michael Tibbetts. I'm a content specialist here at TradeStation Securities. Today's Masterclass is more of a technical analysis masterclass. It's about scanning for high volume option trades. In today's class, I'm going to give you a workspace along with some custom easy language documents that you'll be able to import into your TradeStation and use to follow along with this class. I have a link in the chat for you to download not only the workspace, but the easy language documents that I use in the scan. And I'll walk you through how the scan works. And again, this is just so that you guys can get some ideas on how to use easy language and also how to develop your own ideas for scanning, right? Because you can really do a lot of things with the scanner. So with that said, let me go ahead and go over the disclosure. So very important, this content is for educational and informational purposes only. So any symbols, financial instruments, or trading strategies discussed are for demonstrational purposes only, definitely not research or a recommendation. Okay, TradeStation companies do not provide legal, tax, or investment advice. So that's key here. Past performance, whether actual or indicated by historical tested strategies, no guarantee of future performance or success. Ladies and gentlemen, you know, when you see something on a chart or you're back testing a strategy, and if it looks great in the past, you know, it doesn't necessarily translate to, you know, future results, right? So just because something worked before doesn't mean that it's going to work in the future. There's always the risk that you may sustain a loss. Okay, and so investing involves risk in that way. TradeStation Securities, TradeStation Crypto, TradeStation Technologies, right? These are each wholly owned subsidiaries of the TradeStation Group. You Can Trade is also a wholly owned subsidiary of the TradeStation Group. So to get a better understanding of what each of these companies do, you can visit this link here at the bottom of the fourth paragraph, this bit.ly link. It'll explain a little bit more about the roles of each one of these subsidiaries. Last but not least, this is an options related class. So just know that options trading is not suitable for all investors. In order to trade options, you know, there's a whole application and approval process that has to happen. Even if you are approved to trade options, there might be strategies that you're not approved to trade. It also depends on what kind of account you have, what your, you know, objectives are for trading, your risk tolerance, your financial situation. There's a lot that goes into determining whether or not options are suitable for you and which types of strategies you'll be able to allow to perform in your account. So just make sure that you're aware of that. For more information, you can visit this link here at the bottom of that final paragraph. Okay, so we got quite a few people in attendance. So first of all, I want to say good afternoon and thank you for attending the class today. Really appreciate that you all are here. Let's go ahead and switch over to my workspace here. So this is a simple workspace that that any of you guys can put together. Now, you won't have the scan here because you have to build it yourself. So we're going to go through and show you guys how this is built, and we'll talk a little about it. So the first thing I just kind of want to point out is this is an option scanner, right? So this is scanning for some activity in options, and we're scanning for high volume or new volume that's entering into the options market. And as you can see, we're running some scans, and you're able to see the volume, you're able to see open interest, right? And then we got some of these other custom studies that we're using in here that we pulled in so that we can get some more information about this. So volume and open interest come with the scanning criteria, but the rest of these here I had to get a little bit creative using easy language to get a little bit more information about what's actually happening with this option. All right, so the first thing that we're going to do is Michael, your file did not make it to the chat. Let me see here because I put in a link here. So hold on, let me see if I put this link. Maybe it's because I sent it before everybody attended. Can everybody see the link in the chat right now? It's like a website. Okay. All right, so go ahead and click on that if you want to download this, but you should be able to, does everyone see my screen first of all? I should be sharing my screen too, right? Oh, okay, great. So this is what we're going to build today. So these three windows is very simple. I have a time and sales window, a market depth window, and a chart, and then a scanner window. To open that, you can just use the apps and just open each one of these. So chart, scanner, time and sales, and where's that last one? Market depth right here. All right, so those are the four that we're doing. If you open the workspace, it should already be open for you. The only thing that might be missing here is this option scan. Okay, so let's go ahead and run through that. So what I did was I'm going to actually just go into to create a scan. So first of all, let's start from the beginning. So you're going to click on add. You're going to give your scan a name. So I called mine option scan, right? And from here, I'm going to go to the edit scan window because here's your name. So the symbol universe to include, we're going to look for stock options. So how do you find this? You're going to go down and you're going to click on exchanges, I believe. And then from here, you're going to click on stock options. Okay. So that's found in the exchange setting. So first we give it a name. Second, we select the symbol universe. So is everybody following along so far? How to find stock options? Because I didn't even know that we had a stock options available in the scan because it wasn't obvious when I first looked at this list. I thought we could only scan for stocks and maybe some other randoms. But when I clicked on exchanges, that's when I realized I could scan for a whole lot more. So I'm using the stock options right here under the exchanges section. All right. Symbols to exclude. We're not going to exclude anything because it's just stock options, right? Here's the cool part, the scan criteria. So this is, you can make this whatever you want. So this is the sample part of the class. So for example, for me, when I'm scanning, you know, I want some at some significant volume, right? So for me, I think 1,000 new contracts and, you know, or 1,000 contracts traded was good enough for me. You can be more selective. You can make it more or less. You don't even have to have this in here, but I'm looking at volume versus open interest. So what I've done is I've chosen volume today, which is in the volume section here, volume today, right? And I want that volume to be greater than some number. So I just picked 1,000. You can pick whatever you want. All right. Then whatever that volume is, I also want that volume to be greater than, right, using this operator, than the open interest, because the open interest for an option is telling us how many contracts were left open. They haven't been closed yet from the previous day. So if I'm trying to scan to find new volume entering into the market, that volume that's happening today has to be greater than the amount of open contracts that have been left as of the previous day. Okay. And we'll get more into that later. How do I find this? So when you're selecting your dropdown, you're going to actually scroll down to the indicator section. And then you're going to look for open interest by typing in open, right? And you'll look for the one that just says open interest right here. Because there's a bunch of different open interests here. I'm using just pure open interest. I think these don't apply to options. I think these apply to something else, but this is the one I'm using. Should be built in already. All right, so we have two parameters so far. We have volume, right? We're adding volume. We're making it greater than or equal to our whatever our minimum number of contracts that we want. So that way, no results should have anything less than whatever we put here. In this case, I'm using 1,000. Then we have volume greater than the open interest, because we want to make sure that we're finding options that have fresh new entries into the market, whether it be buying the open or selling the open, we don't know. But we just want to see that there's more participation than the previous day. Here is where we get into the custom easy language stuff. So if you've imported the easy language, there's this one that I found on the forum. Okay, this underscore Greeks RS4 95 lambda. So this particular indicator has I did not code this indicator, so I don't know exactly all of the info that has gone into this indicator. But what I do know is that that indicator has coded information about the option Greeks, as well as days left until expiration, and some other things here, including Lambda, which is kind of an unusual option Greek. I haven't really seen or have ever really used Lambda in options yet. So I'm not really sure what that does. But what I did like about it is that it also pulls the delta, theta, vega, and gamma values. And so it also pulls the days left. So I like that about this indicator. So I decided to just take what I like from that indicator and use it. In this case, I'm using this to plot my delta values because I like looking at the delta. I also like looking at the days left. So I also use the same indicator and I add in a days left. Now I set it to display because I'm not really filtering by any one of these, but you could. For example, you could do equal to or greater than, for example. Let's say you only want to look at calls, right? Maybe you only want to look at calls, so you want them to be greater than or equal to 0, or greater than or equal to 0.01, right? And that's going to only give you calls because any positive delta is going to be a call, any negative delta is going to be a put. Okay, so you can use this also to filter out even more stuff. But for me, I just wanted to be displaying the value so that I can see what it was that was traded. Okay. Trade count. This is a custom indicator that I wrote. This is just basically telling you how many trades did that option have. It's not looking at the number of contracts. It's just telling you how many trades, how many transactions happened for that option for the day. All right. So for example, if you have an option that traded, let's say 10,000 contracts traded in an option today, what's more significant to you? 10,000 contracts that traded in 500 transactions, or 10,000 contracts that traded in one transaction, right? If that happened in one transaction, that's a huge trade. So I want to have the trade count to see stuff like that. The volume over open interest is also a custom indicator that I wrote, and it's nothing special. It's just taking the volume of the day and dividing it by the open interest number, and this creates a ratio. So the higher the ratio, the higher the chances are that we're going to find, we'll be able to filter it quicker to find more volume over that open interest. You'll see why I did that in a minute. And then last but not least, I put days left just because if I do find something interesting, I'm just curious to know how many days left that option has before it expires. All right. So does everybody have this set up already? We ready to move on to the next section? We're just going to run the scan. So now that you have this, you can click on run and it'll run the scan. And I have mine scanning every 5 minutes. It's automatically scheduled to run every 5 minutes. Oh, Rich is still working on it. Give me a second. Let me pull that back up for you, Rich. If you're, I got to wait for this to finish running to edit the scan. Go ahead. Okay. So I'm going to full screen this then. So we run the scan and this is what we see. So I'm going to show you the very first scan I did of the day. I have it set so that new results give me a different color. And that's something that you can do in, I believe, in the preferences section. So anytime there's a new addition, it'll be yellow. So for example, my second scan, you see a bunch more yellow. These white ones are from the first scan of the day and so forth. As I continue adding on scans, I can see these yellow ones are new entries from the last scan. Okay, so that's what the yellow is. I believe you can do that in preferences. Let me just make sure. If it's not in preferences, it might be, I don't know if it's columns or window. It's been a while since I actually looked at that. Let me see if I can find something here. Symbol added indication. Okay, so I'm in the customize window. I'm in the symbol added indication. Before it was, I think, just a little bit more bolded. So I wanted to make it a completely different color so that my eyes go straight to it so I can easily see what's new from the last scan. So to get there, you go to settings, you go to, settings, you're going to go to window, click on color, click on symbol added indication, and you can make it any color you want. Pick a color that you like that's going to stand out from this white and black list. So that way it's easy for your eyes to find, what's new. So, and as you can see, as you do this, you're going to get a lot of results, right? So there's going to be a lot of options trading the more you go through it into the day. Okay, so let's talk a little about this, the scan. So what I'm looking at here is I'm seeing the symbol, I'm seeing how much volume and open interest it has. Now, if you didn't have any of this, you would have to really look and find, something that has some significant volume. Now, some of these have some pretty significant volume already up here, but a lot of times you might find that, it's not that significant. Maybe 1953 contracts that are new for this particular symbol, over 853 open interest. You may not know if that's pretty significant relative to what's been trading. So what you can do is you can take that ratio. I'm going to move the ratio over here for a second. And then just sort by the ratio. So now I can see the ones with the highest ratio, it's going to give me like the more significant volume, right? It's going to show me which ones have the highest volume compared to that open interest. So for example, you can see right away here, Delta Airlines, right? These September 23rd, 35 strike calls. There was only an open interest of 1. And now there's 1,000 contracts traded. So out of that 1, maybe one of those closed out the contract, or maybe we added to that contract. Maybe the open interest at the end of the day will be 1,001. Maybe it'll be 999. Who knows? But we know that there's at least 999 fresh new contracts, right? From that one open interest that they had the previous day. We also know that they're calls because even if we didn't look at the description, the delta is a positive number and it's a delta 38 call. So it's slightly out of the money, right? If a delta 50 call would be exactly at the money. So these are slightly out of the money. These are 35 strike calls expiring in September, right? And this was executed in 50 trades. So these 1,000 contracts were done over the course of about 20 trades or so, right? So we have, and we'll be able to see this later when we look at the time and sales window. And we know that they have about 49 days left. So looking at this, let's see what's going on with this particular symbol. So I can copy the symbol, or I can symbol link this. Remember, this is part of a larger workspace. This is symbol link to a chart. So as you can see, with only 1 open interest, we know that there really wasn't any trades happening in Delta. If we look at Delta and we change the symbol down here to Delta, we can see that the 35 strike price is out of the money. We're trading around $33.05. Let me close out this random indicator that I have there. All right, we got volume here on the bottom, showing the volume of the of whatever we have in here. All right, but we see that it's trading around $33. This is out of the money. So one thing that we don't know is whether or not these are long calls or short calls. This is super important because we can't just assume based on our bias that somebody's purchasing these calls. We don't know that for a fact. Well, all we know is that these 35 strike calls traded, and we have to kind of make our own conclusion based on what we think is happening in the chart. So that's the hard part. So if somebody purchased, for example, 100 shares, or in this case, 1 million shares of Delta Airlines, then they could have easily have sold these as covered calls. So this is what I'm trying to get at. Somebody might make the argument like, oh, somebody must have been long Delta. but you don't really know that for a fact. They might be long delta and then selling these calls to collect, some to generate income, right, for selling the covered call. So we don't really know. That's the only thing that this option scan won't tell you is the direction. You won't know whether or not these were purchased or sold. All right. Another thing that you can do is research the time and sales. So if we click on this and we go to the time and sales window, we can see when these all the calls that were traded, and you can see they were all traded at the same time, right? All of these happen to be traded at 10:19:50 a.m. today. If your date is not showing, you can go to data. Hold on, let me minimize this for a second. Edit custom symbol list. Hold on. Why is there should be a section here to add the date. Give me a second. It's just not appearing for some reason. I'm having a little bit of a, it looks like a formatting issue here. I'm missing there should be a settings page. Are you guys seeing a settings page on yours where you can click on the settings and then adjust the way the window's seen? You should be able to add date to your apps. Let me see if I can add application toolbar. Let me see if I hide it and by bringing it back might make it pop up. There we go, settings. So settings, and then we're gonna go to columns and we're gonna go to detail. And in detail, you should be able to add date. By default, date is not added. So you can add the date and move it up so that it shows up here on the left and hit OK. And that's how you get the date on there. Okay, good. So, yeah, this order was placed all exactly at the exact same time. Okay, filled all at the exact same price. And you can see that it's been filled through multiple exchanges, right? So more than likely, if we don't want to jump to conclusions, but it could be possible, right, that this was like an algo trade. It could have been a sweep, right? It could have been a block, like a really big block. But whatever it was broken up into multiple exchanges and orders. It's very unlikely that different investors placed this order all exactly at the same time and got filled all exactly at the same price. This was probably one very large trade that was trying to be put in and used like a sweep, basically, and an algorithm to try and fill this order. This is what that looks like to me. So this is something to keep my eye on. This is something I think that interests me. And so I want to maybe keep note of this, right? So I could take this symbol, maybe put it in a symbol list somewhere and just follow it, see what ends up happening, right? You can find out what ended up being the result of this. Does Delta Airlines go to 35 within the next 43 days? Or does it crash and burn, and does it just keep going down? So this is kind of an example of how you can use this type of scan. All right. As you can see, there haven't been any other trades with it. We're still showing the trade here between 118 and 123. So the price has gone down from this very large trade. So it's rather interesting. The other thing that you can do is if we open up OptionStation Pro and look up Delta Airlines for this particular symbol for this call, we can also see if there are any other contracts that traded at the same time to see if this was not part of some other strategy, because this may not just be a single call that got traded. This could be part of a multi-leg option strategy. All right, so let's take a look and see if we can find any info on that. Sometimes you can't, so you can go to apps, you can go to OptionStation Pro, and OptionStation Pro is going to open up in another window. So let me just bring that over. All right, we're looking at Delta Airlines. And these were the September 23rd calls. So this is a weekly option. And here's our 1,000, right? Open interest 1, here's our 1,000. So that's the same trade that we saw. Okay. Doesn't look like there's any other large volume for the same expiration date. Okay, we can also check against other expirations for that same time frame. But as you see, there's more volume now in these options. So you're not going to be able to find it. You won't be able to really discern whether or not there could be, right? There could be, for example, it could be a horizontal spread or a calendar spread, but you won't be able to find that information now. So sometimes it's a little more obvious, especially if the time in sales, you see the order at the exact same timestamp, then you know, okay, that was a spread trade or it was a single option trade. It looks like based on this, we can only conclude that this trade happened. We don't know. We can't say with 100% certainty that this may have been part of a like a multi-legged order. So let's see what else we can find. So another thing you can do is run the scan every so often. So for example, this is already run 2 times since we've started the class. You can see that we're getting more in our list for the day. You're seeing some stuff with AMC, some stuff with AMD, Amgen, Amazon, right? You're able to see what's trading. And again, you can quickly sort and see what's the most significant by looking at the ratio. All right. So we can see some of this stuff. So right here, for example, we have 2 different puts here, and the dates are separate. So this is like a calendar put spread, right? We have 10,500 in 1 trade, 10,747 in 2 trades. Sorry, with 2 open interests, 1 trade and 4 trades did this. Pretty significant, almost the same amount of contracts traded. Probably this is some type of spread, if I had to guess, right? And again, you can click on this and go to the time and sales. All right, so we have that 1 trade of 10,500 that happened at 12:09 for 12 cents. All right, and then we have another of 10,740 that happened at 15 cents. So they are almost the same. This one has a little bit more, you know. They also may not be connected. Usually spreads, they're almost exactly the same, but if we look at the time, totally different times also. Right, this happened early in the morning, right at open. This one happened just here in the afternoon. Okay. Let's see if we can find some other interesting ones. And also, you can sort by many different things. You can also want to see, like, let's say what was a big hefty trade, you know, for a single trade. You can sort by the trade count. So sorting by the trade count, you'll see some pretty interesting things when it comes to like the size of these trades. So for example, a single trade of 7,500 contracts in EFA, you know, this is a pretty large trade, right? We can go and see that. You see it was a single order, 7,500 right there, 1 trade. You know, and you'll be able to look at it and look at the details on a 5-minute chart. You can see, okay, here's where the trade happened, right? This happened at 12:30. You can look at EFA at 12:30. You can look at the underlying. Here it was at 12:30, right? We look at a daily chart for the day. All right, so 69 strike calls for EFA. 69 is out of the money. Again, we don't know if somebody's buying it. We don't know if they're bullish or bearish on it. We don't know if they happen to be long the underlying and selling covered calls. There doesn't seem to be any other calls for EFA showing up for this size, for the volume. So that's kind of how you go about looking at it. And then as you start researching the options, so for example, here's the latest scan. You can take a look and see which came in the last 5 minutes, this AMD calls. So for example, right here, 12,148 to 12,133. This almost is the same as the open interest. So to me, this is not that significant because we don't know if these 12,148 entries are closing out these 12,133 contracts that remained open as of the previous day. So even though this did make my list because it's over 1,000 and because it's greater than the open interest, I also would probably not consider this very significant because this could be just closing out the open interest. I'm looking for fresh new entries that are really significant. And that's why that ratio, and when we look at the ratio here, you know, we want to look for something that's pretty significant. This has almost a 1-to-1 ratio. So it could be just closing out the previous open interest. Does anybody have any questions so far on this scanner? Or how we can modify the scan to do something else? All right, so let's talk about modifying the scan. I'm gonna edit my scan now. And we can tinker around with some of these different things. So for example, let's say you're looking at, let's say you want to look at options that have a certain delta range. Let's say you want to look at anywhere between delta 30 options to delta 70 options. Right away, what this is going to do is it's going to eliminate all puts from your results. All right. Trade counts. Maybe we can leave that set to display. We can leave the volume open interest display, but let's say days left. Maybe you're considering options that have some time, right? Maybe you want them to have at least, let's say, 60 days before they expire. You know, this is something that you can do with the scan, and then you can run it. All right, so now we've run that scan, and it's going to load up some different. So now this is a completely different scan from what we were looking at, because now we're filtering it down even more, right? We're filtering it between calls only, between delta 30 and delta 70 options. We're looking at something that only has at least 60 days or greater, right? So we're kind of, what we're scanning for is, I think, more of a, we're trying to find anything that might clue us into maybe a more bullish search for calls is essentially what we're looking at here, right? And so as this is performing the calculation, we'll be able to see what generates from that. And this is going to generate quite a few symbols, it looks like, because it's filtering 599,000 symbols down to just 4,061 symbols. And then from here, it should apply the easy language filters and filter it down a little bit more. So let's see what pops up from this. And the thing is, there may not be a criteria that meets it either, but let's see. So there's only 39 results that meet that criteria. All right. And we can start with the ratio. So here's all the fresh buy-ins from least to greatest. All right. You can see it down here in the ones and the twos. Once we get to twos, we're looking at double the amount of open interest. We're getting into the threes. This is triple the amount of open interest, quadruple, quintuple, right? And so forth. But now we're getting into some bigger numbers. Like this is 36 times the open interest, right? For XBI, which I believe is, I think that might be an ETF. We're looking at 43 times the open interest on GSK, right? GlaxoSmithKline. This is a pharmaceutical company, right? So we're seeing some interesting stuff happening here. We're getting days left here. So we're seeing a lot of, you can sort by that. So 77 and 105, 168. Some of these are leaps. They're going out, you know, over a year. So maybe some of these near-term ones, or relatively near-term ones, might be of interest. and you might want to look at these. So this is how you kind of get some ideas of some scans. And then you can take a look. So for example, maybe these two, we have a QQQ, which is the NASDAQ ETF. We have CCJ. You have this one, CRTO, right? 71 times open interest, expiring in 77 days. Delta on this is almost at the money, right? It's a Delta 48. It's almost a Delta 50 call. We can take a look at this and see what's going on. And this expires at the beginning of next year, right? Saying, in October 21st of 2022. So let me go ahead and minimize this. We can take a look at CRTO, right? And this is a 27, strike price is 27.50. We're at 26.43 for the day. Go to a 5-minute chart. We can also see when this trade occurred, right? So these all single trade, right? All this happened in one trade. Trade size, $1,200. So this is a pretty sizable trade, and it happened at 10:13 this morning. If we look at CRTO and go to, let's say, a 5-minute chart, or we're on a 5-minute chart already, we can see at 10:13 this morning, puts us somewhere between, I mean, we could also go to a 1-minute chart to really narrow it down, right? Let me bring this back. So roughly between 10:13 and 10:14, the price was trading around 26.84. Okay, so then you can put this into the perspective and take a look at all this stuff. Again, when you click on this, you're seeing that there's not a lot of participation in this trade. There really isn't much going on. If you look at the price here, the 180 to 205, this is like a $30 or $40 $30 bid-ask spread. So this is a very wide spread. And unless there's a lot more volume occurring in this option, you may not also get the best fill. So that's why we have the market depth in this, is just so you can kind of see what's the depth of this market. What's the size of the orders that are hitting 180? What are the size of the orders hitting 210? The chances of you being filled at a good price for this trade, are also going to depend on having a tighter spread. So those are also things that you want to consider. That's why, you might want to look at things that have a good amount of volume or a good amount of participation in them. So, but this is just to bring your attention to things that kind of stand out, So this CRTO stand out to me because when you think about the amount of time left and the delta in that option, the value of that option is going to move close to $50 for every dollar this underlying moves. And whatever value is left in that option is whatever extrinsic value that's left in that option is going to erode over the next 77 days, right? So if we're looking, this is a 27.50, it's about 100 points out of the money, right? So out of that $200 value, $100 of that eventually is going to erode. If this doesn't move, let's say this stays at 26.50 by the expiration date, the value of that option is going to go to zero. But even if it goes to 27.50, it's still going to be worth zero. So that $200 is purely extrinsic value at this point. So all of that $200, the entire value of that option is going to erode to zero unless this thing really starts moving in the next, 77 days. So things to consider when you're looking at options as well. But it's a really cool scan. I think it really helps bring your attention to some unique options activity that's happening. And now you guys have it. So you guys can use it for however way you want. You can modify it again, like how we did here. We edited the scan to show calls. We can also do the same thing for puts. We just have to make the value negative, so negative 0.5, for example, to negative, let's say, 0.7. So now we're going to at the money and in the money puts. Maybe we can see some that expire. We'll keep the same amount of days just so that we don't lose any of the results. And we can hit run. And now we're just going to get puts. So while this is running, see if we have any questions in the chat. And if you guys have multiple monitors, this is like a pretty cool one to just have on a separate monitor. So that way you can kind of pay attention to other things. This is more just so that you can do a little bit of options research, you know, just be a little nosy about what happened, what traded, you know, the kind of information, especially when you see those really large orders, you know, it could be like an institutional bank. It could be part of a hedge. It could be somebody who has way too much money and is just taking a big gamble. You know, we don't know who is placing the trades. We don't know which direction they're trading in. But whenever real big option trade like that occurs, you know, you kind of want to get your attention on it. So not too many on the put side following the same criteria. We did narrow it down though from negative 0.5 to negative 0.7 deltas. So we can see here a few, only 3 that we found that are expiring. Oh, look, there's that CRTO again, right? So what does this tell us? This also has 1,000, and this is delta 52. So this could be a straddle, right? So let's go and open up OS Pro again. Workspaces. I'm actually happy we found that, because that's what I was trying to find earlier, that sometimes what you find here might be part of a larger strategy. So happy we found that. So earlier we found this one. This is October 21st, 2750 calls. And then here we have October 21st. Sorry, where did I? Here we go. October 21st, 2750 puts. So now we know this is a straddle trade, right? We don't know if he's long the straddle or short the straddle, but we know it's a straddle trade, right? So now that really makes things interesting, because now we go to CRTO and we look at it. You know, is this person banking that this thing is going to move, or is it going to stay more or less where it's at? If we're looking at this from a very long-term perspective, it looks like it's been kind of downtrending. But there goes that disclosure where, you know, past performance is not indicative of future results. So we don't really know where this is going to go. It seems that this person is trading the straddle, but we don't know which side he's on. Is he long the straddle or is he short the straddle? But this is super interesting, and I'm probably going to want to watch CRTO now to see what ends up happening in the next 77 days. So in 77 days, we'll see where this thing goes, you know? And that's just kind of how I go about doing my option research. So times 115, class is scheduled to run to 1:30. But this is pretty much the bulk of the class. You know, we've did a couple of scans. We've modified it twice now. Got some ideas, you know, as to like how to find some things that stand out. So if you guys have any questions, you know, floor is open. You can, I guess I can open up the microphones. We can do that here in the masterclass. So let's go ahead and open up the microphones. And okay, everybody's microphones are enabled. So if you guys have any questions, feel free to ask. We got just a few minutes before we wrap it up.
I'm glad you went over this information. Just getting into this options, ability to sort options data on real time is eye-opening to me. So it's like taking it to a new level for me.
That's great. Yeah, I mean, you know, the idea is just to identify high volume orders, high volume trades, The only thing, like I said, is that we don't know because the time and sales doesn't really tell us. Like if we look at, let's say I just look at the underlying here, you know, you can kind of maybe deduce a little bit more about what's happening here, right? Like you get this is happening at the ask. Usually if you're not being picky and you're putting in a market order to buy something, you get filled at the ask. So at least if you were to guess that this trade must have been a purchase because it happened at the ask, you know, you might be a little bit closer to finding out, you know, the truth of this order. I mean, somebody could have also sold at the ask as well, right? They could have sold at the asking price and got filled at the asking price. But with options, you see, like when we click on this, you don't get that amount of detail because the exchange doesn't provide that detail. So all you know is that the trade happened. You don't know whether it's a buy or sell. You don't know if it happened at the bid or the ask. So that's the only thing that you don't get to see, which is kind of important, really, if you're trying to really deduce what's happening here. But what you do see is that this last trade that happened did bring the bid tick down. And this is on the put side. If we were to look at the call side, this also brought the bid tick down.
Well, your ratio for volume and open interest would be something a person could take a look at to see what is actually going on there.
Well, so when we looked at it, so for this particular contract, the volume over open interest. So for CRTO in the call side, because now we know that this is a straddle trade, right? Because it's literally the exact same strike price, but with a put instead of the call, and the exact same amount of contracts traded. So we know it's a straddle. This is telling me that there's 71 times the amount of open interest, right? So there's 71 times new contracts that are entering that are now possibly open contracts, right? We won't know what the open interest is until tomorrow because it's either adding to this number or taking away from this number or somewhere in between, right? But because there aren't any other trades here that we see, this happen in a single trade, it's probably adding to this open interest. So we're probably seeing tomorrow, we might see 1,014 for the same exact contract, assuming that no other contracts get traded for this today. And then on this side, the open interest is only 2. So we are 500 times more active today in terms of number of contracts traded than we were the previous day. Again, for that same strike price, just on the put side. You see the price for the puts were 270 and the price for the calls were 200 even. So the puts were a little bit higher than the calls. Now, some people can also interpret that however they want as well, because some people will say, well, if the puts are a little more expensive, maybe they're expecting a little more risk, right, to the downside. So sometimes there's a skew between calls and puts, because these are the exact same price. Like if we look this up on Option Station Pro, let me pull this up real quick. This is CRTO for October 21st. Let me put this on. Marcel, can an option symbol be put in time and sales? Yes, we're doing it right now. We've been doing it. There's all these windows are symbol links. So when I click on an option symbol, that option symbol, you're seeing the option symbol right here. This is the time and sales for that option symbol. All right, so I'm opening up my Option Station Pro. Where did it go? Is it hiding behind this? I don't see it. Give me 1 second, guys, because this is hiding somewhere. I just don't know where it's hiding. Ah, here it is. Okay, so we have CRTO. All right, and we are looking at the October, the scan found one in October. How come I don't see October here? There's two CRTOs though. There it is. October 21st, 2022. Ah, but look, the plot thickens. So check this out. So now, you see, this is why I like to check Option Station Pro. So we also have the 3250s and the 2250s. So now this is no longer just a straddle, but this could be an iron butterfly trade, right? You guys see that? Because you have, they're sharing the same strike price in the middle, same middle strike price. And then you have the wings that make up the butterfly. You have the 3250 and you have the 2250. So this is an iron butterfly trade that we've just discovered by just scanning for the option. Now, this may not have appeared right away in the option because remember that we filtered out. We were only looking at Delta 50 to Delta 70 puts, so we were only seeing part of the picture. This is why a lot of times when I scan for options, if I edit the scan, sometimes I just want to display them, right? Sometimes I just go to display, right? Display. And then I run that scan because when I put filters, I might be missing part of the picture. That's why I said it's good to check Option Station Pro to see something that stands out. So obviously the open interest here is very low in general for this particular symbol. It's probably not a very liquid option to begin with. As you can see, there's not a lot of open interest in general throughout the strike prices. Not even like perhaps as we get closer, you see there's hardly any volume in this. Okay. So whoever is trading this, for some reason or another, they must have some type of assumption about what's going to happen with this particular symbol, with this underlying symbol, and they're doing some type of iron butterfly trade. We don't know if the iron butterfly is long or short, but do you see how we've evolved from first finding the call, then we found the put, so then we thought, oh, this might be a straddle, right? Because there was a straddle here, but then we checked Option Station Pro and found out there are wings attached to that straddle, which make it an iron butterfly. So it's this is kind of the thing that if you're trying to find unusual options activity, or if you're trying to hunt for large volume trades that really stand out, using the scanner can help make it a little bit easier. You'll be able to find things using the scanner and using some simple, easy language indicators that you can add to that scanner.
Thanks for bringing up this subject. It's a great thing.
Yeah. Prasad asks, can we chart an option spread or a butterfly? You can chart it, but not as a single, not in a single chart. So you could chart it as 4 data sets. So I'll show you what I mean by that. So for example, we have our first data set. Oh, that's the link here. So let me copy the symbol here. So we can copy, paste it. Right. And so here's our first data set. And as you can see, because it's so thinly traded, first of all, this has only, this is on a 5-minute chart. Let me go to a daily chart. There really hasn't been a lot of trades in this history. There's literally been 4 transactions or 5 transactions since the inception of this option that, over the last 2 or 3 years, however many historical years back I'm looking. So, but if we were to add another data set to this, you could, and then we can copy the symbol and put in the put. And now it's gonna graph down here, right? So you can see there's a little bit of a
order filled.
Apparently I had an order that just got filled. Right, and then we can check Option Station Pro to put in the rest, right? So for example, we have the 2250 puts, right? So you would just put in here P2250. And so now this is putting in the put. And then the last one is the call, the other call, which I think was 32.50. So, but as you can see, plotting all this in a single chart doesn't always result, you know, in the best. Sorry, I forgot to add that as another option symbol. But you get what I'm saying, right? You can plot multiple symbols in one chart, but I think when you're trying to chart a spread, it doesn't really help to see all the individual components together. I really don't think that's the best way to follow it, you know. I think the easiest way to follow it would be maybe you could, if you're interested in following along and seeing what happens with this, like let's say you had an assumption, but you didn't actually want to take the trade with real money, is you can go into the simulated account and then follow that trade. So for example, let's say if I believe this person was short an iron condor, right? Then I would just do that trade in my simulated account just to see and follow along with it, right? So I can build it. I can sell, you know, hold my control here. I can hit sell here. Let me scroll down here, hold control, hit buy here, and sell here. Let me see, did I do that right? Hang on. Let me restart, or I could just fix it here. So right, so let's say my assumption based on, you know, how I'm interpreting it was, let me fix this one here, was that let's say he's selling the middle strikes and then he's purchasing the outer strikes. So this would be like a short iron condor. Basically, this would benefit if the stock stayed close to 27.50. There is going to be probably an assignment because of this strategy, because unless the stock expires exactly at 27.50 and doesn't change in the overnight session, I'm probably going to be assigned either way, right? So there's an assignment risk here involved with this at 27.50. So there's an obligation of, you know, quite a few shares that you need to purchase at 27.50. And then, you know, you would place the order and you can follow it along that way. So that's why you would do it. You could do this in a simulated account. If you have a hunch, let's say, and you say, oh, you know what, I think this person probably is doing a short iron butterfly here. Let me see what happens. All right, so here's the iron butterfly. You can place that trade in a simulated account just to see what would happen. And then you could just follow it along and see what ends up happening from it, you know. There really isn't much more that you can do in terms of analysis with this. This is really just to find that high volume and trying to find significant volume by just comparing it to the open interest. But the rest is just pure, you know, interpretation of what's actually happening with those contracts. Again, you don't know which set is being bought or sold. Another way to look at this too is you don't know if, so we assumed that this was an iron butterfly, but this could have easily been, you know, a call spread. Maybe he was doing a long call spread, and here he was doing a long put spread, you know. We don't know if he bought this one and sold this one. So there's so many different ways that you can interpret this, but if these all happened at the same time, you know, more than likely this was an iron butterfly trade. But again, it's all just assumptions. You know, you'll never really know. The only people that really know, I think, are the people who fill the orders. So, all right, guys. So that's our class for today. Pulling this up just one last time again. So everything that we talked about, this is just for educational, informational purposes only. We're not really making any assumptions about any of the trades that we've discovered today. This is just to really show how the scan can be used to locate, you know, or to identify maybe some options that are, you know, exhibiting some unusual activity, or to find, you know, high volume option trades that weren't there the previous day. All right, so hope you all enjoyed the presentation today, and if you have any questions, feel free to write me an email. I can put my email for you here, and again, the link that I provided in the chat has all of the easy language that I use in the scan, as well as the workspace that has all of the applications already pretty much set up for you. All you have to do is create the scan, and you'll be scanning away, finding those options that are coming into the market. All right, guys. So I'm going to go ahead and stop now. And thank you so much for attending. My name is Michael Tibbetts. I'm a content specialist here at TradeStation Securities. Thank you for attending today's masterclass. I hope you all have a wonderful weekend. Take care. Bye-bye.